Be holy, just be holy, says the Torah this week. Kedoshim tiyu, you shall be holy. And the commentaries explain that it's necessary to give us this added instruction to aspire to holiness. Although the Torah has given us a recipe for living with all of the commandments, the 613 commandments that tell us exactly how to live appropriately, we still have this added instruction, be holy. Because, says Nachmanides the Ramban, a person can be a menuval b'shut haTorah. A person can be a despicable human being and still quote the law and say, I have fulfilled the technicalities of law. I've stayed within the gambit of what the law requires. A person needs to, in addition to fulfilling the technicality of law, to constantly check ourselves. Am I aspiring to holiness? Am I sensitive to growth and to development, to make sure that my life is more touched by a spiritual domain, that I cling to the holies? And these areas of holiness are presented this Shabbat in two very diverse, different arenas. We begin the portion by talking about holiness in the holies of holies, with the holiest person, the high priest, on the holiest day of Yom Kippur. How much respect, how much acknowledgement for holiness, how much reverence there needs to be when one enters into a space that is way higher than the average space that we occupy in our mundane lives. And then it moves to a totally different expression of holiness and how we achieve it. And it says, K'ma'asei Eretz Mitzrayim, as the activities of the ancient culture of Egypt, which was depraved, which was deficient, which went to the lowest ebb that a human being can sink to. Don't allow those elements to enter into your camp. Don't let the Jewish community embrace the kinds of activities that are so associated with the depravity of ancient Egypt, which surrounded you when you were slaves in Egypt. And it continues to speak about bestiality, illicit relationships, immoral relationships, incest, all of the things that we consider less than what a human being should be involved in. And that too is holiness. When one avoids that kind of activity, one has aspired to holiness. And what's interesting is that on the day of Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, in the morning we read the first portion of this Shabbat's reading, which talks about what the high priest did in the holies of holies, removed from the average, way beyond the activities of the mundane. In the afternoon of Yom Kippur, we read from the Torah this second definition of holiness. Be careful. Don't allow yourself to become a depraved human being. Disassociate yourself from values that are less than what we know to be holy. And it's interesting that we read them both on the day of Yom Kippur, the morning of Yom Kippur and the afternoon of Yom Kippur, and it's to remind us that a human being is a composite of the earth. We are taken from the earth, and we are able to descend to behave in a way that is more depraved even than animals who are created to be as they are. We sometimes choose to behave that way. And on the other hand, a human being can land up higher than the highest angels. We are able to walk where even the finest and the best of the angels cannot reach. That is the makeup of a human being, a physical element and a spiritual soul, all housed in the same person. And what we're being told is aspire to holiness. Think about that which is way beyond the average. Think about how holiness can be achieved in a unique, special area and arena that is beyond your grasp on a regular moment, a regular day. But if you're not aspiring to the highest heights, remember and recognize to what degree a human being can sink and allow moral values to erode, to become so depraved like the culture of the ancient Egyptians. The human being is on a train track, and sometimes the train tracks part ever so subtly, but down the tracks, they become different directions completely. We live constantly aware of the holiness that transcends the angels and our ability to aspire to that holiness, and the possibility of, God forbid, allowing our lives to sink and descend, to behave in a way that is less than even the realm of the animals. Let us aspire to be holy, to constantly think about raising our values, about aspiring to a higher height, about being sensitive to the spiritual domain. Have a beautiful Shabbos.